President Buhari inaugurates infrastructure projects in Imo State.
It took the sheer determination and the courage of the current government to fix these roads. So I say bravo.
Specifically agreed to a program of technical assistance, which we will provide in order to further the hydrocarbon sector.
Nigeria and the United States made commitments to zero emissions by 2050.
Federal High Court grants interim application to detain Toko Mamu for 60 more days.
And Good Morning Nigeria today will continue our conversation on wrongdoing since
In about 2 weeks, political campaigns will commence in earnest in Nigeria, but it appears all is not well with some of the major political parties, despite efforts at abating the squabbles.
Now, the internal wrangling within the political parties, some would say, raise valid questions on the ability of the parties to overcome these conflicts so that the conflicts do not impede the process of marketing their manifestos to the electorate.
Earlier on Tuesday, we opened up a conversation on squabbles in political parties with a cross-section of guests from different political parties.
Now, Chief Ralph Okewosu, the national chairman of the African Democratic Congress, stated that the challenge is characteristic of the larger society, which, according to him, reflects what political parties are also doing right now. Now, he said that the thoughts on the undeniable factor of political leadership and its flaws are responsible for what we are witnessing even in the political parties.
And former majority leader, Kogi State House of Assembly, Honorable Adamu Mohammed, insists that most parties do not have internal democracy or party ideology. Rather, he believes that most of the parties are crises, if you like, as a result of those who are after selfish gains or power drunk.
Now, according to him, a number of the political parties relegate the will of God and the rule of law to the background. Now, while sharing his experiences, Honorable Adamu also said that he was denied a ticket sometime in the past as a potential ward councillor because he was unmarried. Now, Adamu decried the system that is heavily monetized, giving little or no priority to ethical values in the political process.
Aliyu Audu, convener of APC Rebirth, however, had a different view. He posits that no political party is formed with a political ideology, while acknowledging squabbles in parties as a generational malaise. He says the followers also have a major role to play by making their leaders accountable for their actions and words. His argument is that many parties are still predetermine what happens at the ward and council congresses, especially during primaries and elections, a situation that undermines internal democracy.
Well, the national chairman of the National Rescue Movement, Honorable Isaac Ude, stated that the issues of party members cutting corners with many seeking tickets for political offices on the basis of personal gains is an issue to also worry about.
How then can political parties build a formidable structure that will discredit wranglings? And how can members have equal rights in their parties? And with just about 5 months to the elections, when will these parties put their houses in order? These are some of the talking points that we'll be expatiating on as we continue discussion on wranglings in political parties in Nigeria. My name is Kirian Umayo. Thank you for joining us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to another package on Good Morning Nigeria live on our network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll also have our complimentary segments in the course of the program, and this will include business and newspaper review.
The program is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of NTA. Now we go business. African ministers of finance, economy and the environment meet in Egypt to turn pledges to implementation for blue walls, green bonds and debt for nature in Africa. Details with Alika Obanachi Aroa on Business News.
With COP27 less than 2 months away, Sameh Shoukry, the Egyptian Minister of Foreign Affairs and COP27 President-designate, said financing for climate action in Africa had not been forthcoming despite the pledges. To this end, the ministers have gathered in Cairo, Egypt, to address a number of pressing issues, including the need to increase private sector finance, reducing the cost of green finance, debt for climate swaps, and investing in sustainable infrastructure. Meanwhile, the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development has so far committed a total of about $450 million into the economy of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire to finance projects in various areas such as infrastructure, health, industry and agriculture. The president of the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development disclosed this at a signing ceremony for 2 loan agreements totaling 67.12 billion in Abuja. The president of the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development said the 2 loans are for financing of projects to upgrade operating theaters, neonatal units and imaging services in referral hospitals, and to fund the industrial component of the agro-industrial road project in the north region of the country. Now let's take a look at Tuesday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Obanachi Aroa.
Thank you very much, Alika Obanachi Aroa, for the business package. Up next for us is newspaper review.
All right, now it's time for newspaper review, and we have a number of papers here now, about 2 to review, plus perhaps other headlines from newspapers that we don't have here in the studio. We'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper. ASU strike. Commuters stranded as students block Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. That's Daily Trust. The story is on page 26. Aero to resume flight operations month end as Osma invests 21.425 billion naira. It's on page 19. The DSS accuses Mamu of financing terrorists as court extends his detention. It's on page 5. Now the lead story. Insecurity. Northern governors, monarchs back state police. 2 riders to that to harvest 2,000 megawatts of solar power. Says ASU strike hits North Mall. Call for truth. Okay, it's on page 4. Now, other stories, of course, the photo stories of the Northern Governors Forum that sat where the decision was made to back a state police. Details on page 4. Buhari blames militants for drop in oil revenue. It's on page 6 of Daily Trust. Bandits free ex-councillor, give him bike to raise 8 million naira for them. That's on page 17. Terrorism. Court reserves judgment in Kanu's trial. As appeal court reserves judgment in Kanu's trial. That's on page 27. All right, at the bottom, Atiku pledges 7 trillion naira economic stimulus fund in first 100 days in office. Two riders to halt support to ailing state-owned companies. Vows to reduce borrowing. Also on page 20. That's where you get details of that story. And Atiku pledges 7 trillion economic stimulus fund in first 100 days in office. Kinsley.
All right, Kieran, let's also take a look at the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper. And we begin by looking at the earpiece beside the name flag. It says 2023 budget. Senate opposes 6 trillion naira tax and import duties waivers. False proposed 12.43 trillion naira budget deficit. And then below the nameplate, it says attack on Uba politically motivated. And that's attributed to Masab. And the lead story, of course, is still on the hostage negotiator with terrorists. That's DSS links Mamo to local and global terrorist groups. Gets court's nod to detain him for 60 more days. That's 2 more months. And then on the right-hand side, that's the right column, Muslim ticket. Dogara, Babachir, and Dabo meet Christian leaders of 19 northern states. Hope rises for Ekwuremadu's daughter. Lady offers to donate kidney to her. Terrorism. Appeal court reserves judgment in Kanu's appeal. Buhari blames militants and Boko Haram for dropping oil revenue. Inaugurates Uzodima's projects. And then you have the usual political talk. Obi Tinubu won't win 2023 election. And that's according to Okowa and Atom, who are the PDP, by the way. Delta governor's humility and merit earned him VP slot, according to Ayu, party chairman. ASU strike. Students block Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Commuters stranded. And the second list story below the photograph there on the front page says Nigeria was up today down 2015. Again, that's according to Atiku, presidential candidate of the PDP. Military continues onslaught against terrorists in Kaduna. Kill scores. So those are the headlines from the Daily Sun newspaper that we shall be discussing along, of course, with others. Kiran, very quickly, let's take a look at a story that's been trending since late last week, and that is the current number of the Supreme Court justices. The number today is 13 against the constitutionally mandated 21. So which means there are 8 vacancies in the Supreme Court. Of course, we are entering the season of intense litigation arising from election petitions and appeals. And already the Supreme Court has a heavy workload. So with a vacancy of 8 justices, the latest to retire is His Lordship Honorable Justice Aboki. Of course, we recall that the Chief Justice resigned following the revolt amongst his brother lords with respect to what their lordship said were instances of poor management or administration of the Supreme Court itself. Honorable Justice Mary Odili, we recall, has also retired. Earlier last year, we saw the exit of His Lordship Rose Vival. And of course, there have been also 2 vacancies arising from the passing of the two lordships. So the question then is, what happens in the interim? Because the process of filling up the vacancies sometimes can be tedious, but it is also not one that should be rushed.
Yes, in terms of being tedious, I think Supreme Court has existence as long as Nigeria has, with respect to the fact that the process should not be cumbersome that much. For instance, if a judge is to retire in 6 months' time or thereabout, the process of replacing the judge should commence, ever before the judge leaves office. That's my own personal opinion. So that by the time the person leaves, already somebody is replacing him or her. But in the event of allowing the person to retire, perhaps it to take several months for you to begin to negotiate who will replace the person, makes it look as if it's tedious, as you mentioned. These are certain things, Papa, I believe could be simply handled. I mean, because those in the hierarchy should also know people who should be eligible to take over the position. So the process should commence before retirement. It's only in the case of death, of course, which is usually sudden that one could say, okay, fine, if that happens, then it could take some time to see if you can get a replacement. But in terms of retirement, it should be properly worked out.
Well, Kieran, thanks for your comments, but it turns out that in some jurisdictions, the appointment to the highest bench in the land is not a straightforward process. Take the United States, for instance. Appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States is often tinged with a lot of politics, because you're saying it is the president who would nominate a candidate for a seat on the Supreme Court, and of course it goes for confirmation by the Senate, the same way we have here in Nigeria. But it is the political leaning. It is the candidate nominated for the position of a Supreme Court justice. Is he a conservative or is he a liberal? Those are the kind of tendencies that you would have. And in our own case, the Supreme Court also, you have to now look at the balance. What is the balance? What is the spread? What are the tendencies? Because there have sometimes issues have been raised about the composition and so on and so forth. And then you also have to look at some of the competencies of their lordships. Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
Yes. It's not straightforward. It's not so easy.
I understand, but you have a president of a country who nominates a justice at the Supreme Court level, right? And you have to do this study, carry this study. This is not a rocket science to say, look, let's discuss this issue. Who is going to be replaced? Where did the person come from? And what is the balance you're talking about? I mean, you get that done under weeks. I mean, you just have to take months or some cases years to replace a judge. Like you're pointing out now, in the next couple of months, we'll talk about litigations here and there as elections are around the corner. And what's going to happen? If that happens, then if you have eight vacancies, and how can the Supreme Court judges who are there today and they handle such cases? It's going to be very tedious, So, I mean, the earlier we simplify some of these things, the better for us. The processes are there. It doesn't need to be made to look as if it's tedious and that much. The president has the right to say, look, I'm appointing this person, go out there, investigate.
That would first be on the recommendation of the NJC. The NJC will recommend, and then the president would forward the names to the Senate. But then, of course, the Senate... it's not, isn't a rubber stamp, by the way.
Every situation we try to politicize this stuff. That's what happens to us here. Yes. I mean, over politicization of issues.
Well, the other point, we have not had the opportunity of discussing this, and I think that it's novel in our climate, but it also raises a number of issues. A graduate of LAUTECH, that is Ladoke Akintola University, in Ogbomoso, did something dramatic the other day, but he did say that it wasn't a social media stunt. He walked back to Ladoke Akintola University, University, and said he was returning the certificate issued him, and then demanding a refund of all the fees that he had paid. Because since graduation, he had not been able to get a job.
What about knowledge that he has gained? So how is he going to refund that one? Is he going to refund that one?
That's the issue. But the Alumni Association of the institution has made a donation to him. And some persons have also raised the question, look, it's a good thing that you have done by giving him some cash donation, but he is not looking for fish.
Exactly.
He's not looking for fish. It's give him the opportunity, give him a pond where he can fish. And I think that's the key thing. But the knowledge that he has acquired, I said it's novel in the first instance, and let's get this clear.
It's just out of frustration.
Out of frustration. Ordinarily, it is the institution that awards a certificate or a degree certificate to a candidate who has fulfilled the requirements, having been found worthy both in character and then in learning. And the institution reserves the right to withdraw that certificate even after graduation, after issuing the certificate to the candidate. But for you to say that you are returning the certificate, I don't know whether he had an application to say that all his records in the institution should also be deleted.
Exactly.
It should also be deleted. We don't have that. And then the knowledge that he acquired during his years as a student there, but the knowledge should also be vacuumed from his brain. You got to take and make it clear. But it's a matter of frustration. But at the end of the day, we also have to ask ourselves to say, look, how much personal effort did he engage? What else did he try to do aside from his principal line of study? There are a number of inventive young persons around there.
I'm sure that before the Alumni Association made that donation, they must have had a conversation with him as to his direction of thoughts in terms of what he can do. You know, for them to have raised that amount of money means that they must have discussed with him to say, look, what can we do for you that can put you on a good starting point, and does that.
If you recall, when El-Rufai, governor of Kaduna State, was having issues with the authorities of Ahmadu Bello University because El-Rufai, the administration, said that there had been a violation of the planning regulations within the land of ABU and so on and so forth, and it took some of those buildings down. Some of the lecturers were threatening to get the school authorities to withdraw the certificate that they had awarded to El-Rufai. El-Rufai studied quantity surveying at Ahmadu Bello University, the first class, and then they said they were going to threaten to withdraw that certificate. I recall a good boy in Nigeria here saying, look, that is not a ground for you to say you want to withdraw the certificate.
A first-class student. I mean, no. Now, this DSS issue, accusing Mamu of financing terrorism and all of that, I tried to read some portions of it, to understand the level of accusation, that against him. And I can see that we had certain things, they have listed, which was found in his residence, both in Kaduna and Abuja and what have you. But the more incriminating one, in my thinking, instead of the uniforms of Navy uniforms and military uniforms, army uniforms found in his place. But if that is true, that's another dimension to the issue of Mamu, because this is very an intricate issue. I mean, it has to do with security and what have you. And again, another thing that is interesting with respect to security also is the Northern Governor's monarch's back state police, which many Nigerians clamored for over the years, including, respectfully, IBB. I mean, in some years past, I read in some of his publications then on the issue of state police. He said, look, it is high time we did that. It's over nearly 10 years ago. Right? If Nigeria had taken that stance in terms of establishing state police, what we have now in terms of security in the states of Nigeria wouldn't have been as bad as it is, including the Boko Haram thing. Because one, if you may agree then that Borno State has state police, right, some of even the criminal elements would have been part of the security system of the state. So these people would have found job doing for government as against taking arms and becoming bandits. Because if you talk to them most times, they say, look, they're also hungry and they want to feed. And perhaps what is wrong is their own method of feeding, being banditry, kidnapping, and what have you.
All right. On the Marble case, the matter is sub judice. So it's already in court, and so it's having its day in court. It's on the basis of the application by the DSS that his detention has now been extended by another 60 days. So once the charges are framed and then he has the opportunity of taking his plea and the trial commences, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about what happened. Now, with regard to state police, you know, the greatest argument that anyone had made about not having state police is the potential for abuse by state chief executives. And the counter argument to that always has also been, look, you have a federally controlled police at the moment. Are there instances where there have been no abuses by the powers that be with regard to either the deployment or utilization of the federally controlled police? I think that as in some cultures, as they will say, it is the time you wake up that is the morning for you. If there is now a consensus on state police, of course, it is not just sufficient to say, we want state police, and then so you have it right now. State police will require an amendment to the Constitution. So if all stakeholders agree on the necessity for having state police, will it come before the elections or will it come after the elections? Will it come as to usher in the next administration from 2023? And if so, then the process for constitutional amendment can be kicked in. Once you kick that in, then you say get a state police. I think that what is critical is having the safeguards against abuse. And that means working out the operational relationship between state police and federal police. The fact that you are going to have state police does not mean that federal police, for instance, will have to exit your location. You follow? And then you also have to worry about a number of things. One, recruitment, training, and payment. Because again, the argument was made in the past that, look, how can you have state police where some states are struggling with the payment of salaries for civil servants for many months now? You have state police, you arm them, you don't pay them for months. But these are the issues that if you're going to have state police, these are issues that will be streamlined in the provisions for it in the Constitution if amended.
As soon as the will is established by the powers that be, it's a simple thing. It's simple in the sense that you sit down and work out the modalities for doing that, the processes of doing that. The state police should be the responsibility of the state government in terms of not having enough funds to pay police, state police, but they have enough funds to throw about. They have enough funds to have a long convoy. They have enough funds to do other things that are not even, you know, the wishes of the people. So that's a different matter altogether. Even the money they spend in what today is called a security vote. What do they do with that? Security vote, if you hear the amount of money you are talking about as security vote, that can be used to establish a state police. When you work out the process, we still have a federal police. In the US, we have the FBI, and you have the state police. You have the NYPD, for instance, which is the New York police, and of course the FBI. When there are security matters that, of course, is beyond the capacity of the state police, you involve the federal police to give you some assistance. And that is how it is done elsewhere. But for us to depend on the federal police, which the governors have no control of, how does he manage the state? And he's the chief security officer of the state. So how does he exercise that responsibility? So these are some of the things that the country should look into and rework. Rework our ways of doing things and accepting the new norms, that is global.
Okay, all right. I think part of what will be required going forward, I'm sure that, as you said, if there is a consensus now on getting state police and working out the mechanics, there is a police trust fund already. The police trust fund is sourced from the totality of revenue that we have in the country. So it may then be advisable to say that a percentage or a part of the police trust fund goes to the funding of the state police. State governors will argue that current security votes, part of it, those votes, are utilized for the funding of of the federal police. They buy them vehicles, they buy them equipment, they give them allowances, and so on and so forth.
You stop buying them.
So that now stops and goes over to the state police. So the thing is to say, northern governors and monarchs have made this point. Can we have a national consensus and move forward thereafter? That's it for us in our Super Review segment. It's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with a continuation of our discussion on the disputes in the political parties.
All right, we thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. And to begin our conversation, let's take these excerpts of the wranglings in political parties put together by Abdulsalam Jibril.
In the political parties, it's called that, especially for the emerging political parties, the membership are always new. When it comes to an election year, you see that almost everybody who want to contest election may have left either PDP or APC or any of the other parties. They leave the parties, they come into these emerging parties to contest election. And when they come in, no matter the DNA, the values you try to create within your party, they come with these external influences. And then before you know it, the trouble will start.
If the set regulation, if the rules governing any organization, any association, any party is respected by the members, you know, we have party members who do not want to obey even their own constitution. That is usually it. Then greed comes in. If we agree that the constitution is supreme, it simply means that everyone, irrespective of your role or of your position in the party, will abide by the rules. If we all agree to do this, which means we do not have to win all the time. We can't all win all the time. But it means that it is never one man win and the rest are forgotten.
This situation of party wranglings will continue because somebody who comes into the party and took over the sponsorship of that party, one way or the other, may decide to do otherwise, not knowing that the party itself is supreme. And most of them don't even sit down to study the constitution of the party.
If it is possible to limit the number of our political party, it will help solve the problem. And at the same time, if you can take the pain of, following the party constitution to solve our problem. My colleague was telling us that people will just jump into the party to contest. There is a rule. I've not read the constitution of your party. There must be a rule that says that you must be a member of the party for a period before you can contest election.
All right, now those were excerpts from the first part of our conversation on the topic yesterday. And today, of course, we have other guests to continue to interrogate the issue of wrangling in political parties, just with 2 weeks to the formal flag off of political campaigns ahead of the 2023 elections. Let's welcome Dr. Baraka Sani. Dr. Baraka Sani is a PDP stalwart. She's been Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources in Kano State, and also former Senior Special Assistant to President Goodluck Jonathan with regard to agriculture. Dr. Baraka Sani, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And we also have joining us via Zoom from Asaba, Charles Aniago. Charles Aniago is the one of the spokespersons for the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. That's Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Charles Aniago, we're glad to have you with us on the program this morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, okay. Charles, I want to begin with you, really, because I know that in your days as an anchor, you would have once in a while deliberated on the issue we have this morning, which has to do with the wranglings, in political parties. Your party is a major opposition party in Nigeria today, and when it comes to this issue of wrangling, you're also noted for that. And what is your view about these wranglings, especially when it comes from parties that people believe should have had enough experience to understand the mechanics, of running a political party?
Well, Kirian, first on a lighter note, I will not agree for you to ditch me out of this profession this morning. So it's not a question of during my days. I'm still a member of this profession. So any attempt to want to edit me and then throw me out of the profession, I will resist it with every inch of my professional knowledge. Now, having said that, the political parties, of course, the reflection of the society we live in. And so if you expect that political parties and members within that party will not have divergent views on certain issues, then it's, of course, tantamount to saying that the society does not even need the military or the courts, in which case you are assuming that everybody will wake up and live normally and behave normally. And thereby, it means you don't also need the laws. It means people are expected to behave normally. You know that will not happen. So the reason why you have the laws is that when people act differently, you use the law to tell them, no, this is what is expected of you, because the law more like codifies expected behavior. But even in the midst of such codification of how individuals are to act or how they are to relate, you still see people going against those rules. And when that happens, you now have some form of mechanism. In the case of political parties, you have different organs that gets involved in resolving those crises. Just as you have in the society, you have sometimes you have the law courts. Sometimes you also go through the other arbitration processes for the purpose of settling either within the courts room or outside the courtroom. So all those things are normal. So when you have disagreements within political parties, it is not out of place. What is important is that the parties must be able to find a way of settling those things, because the more you are able to resolve them, the more you become seized of the issues and the agitation that may have triggered the agitation have been issue. And so what is happening with respect to the PDP, our political party, is that it's about the biggest party in the country, even if it's not the party in power at the moment. It has a membership across the over 8,000 wards in the country, and of course the 774 local government areas. These are individuals from different ethnic groups, different religious persuasion, and of course, different interest. There are those whose interest is buried in other person's aspirations. And so what happened to those aspirations is very, very key to whatever their interest will become at the end of the day. So because these different interests may not fall in line with one another, you now see these different disagreements. But I am happy that the party leadership is making a whole lot of effort to resolve the differences, and so much effort, so much progress have been made. But I can tell you, for those who, particularly my colleagues in the media, who think that the crisis in the PDP is deepening, that is not true. There is a whole lot of ground that have been covered. But what you notice is that just like when a man washes his clothes because it's dirty, you don't just say because you have washed off the stains, and then the next thing is that you just go ahead and put it on. There's also a period where you need to dry the clothes that you have washed, and after you have dried it, you still progress to iron the clothes. And so all that is to enable you put on a well-ironed dress. And so what we have done with the position of the NEC meeting a couple of days ago was to ensure that the dirty linens have been washed. Now that we have done the washing, so if you are hoping that the next day we will put on our dress and then begin to walk on the street, that's not going to happen immediately. We are now going through the process of drying the clothes, in which case more like cleaning up some of the stains, and then ensuring that the loose ends are tightened, and thereafter we progress to ironing the clothes so we can put it on. So there's no cause for alarm. A whole lot of ground is being covered. Today, I am quite optimistic that the leadership of the party, led by our presidential candidate and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, will be meeting with our leader one of our leaders in Oyo State, specifically the governor of Oyo State, Makinde, and a number of other persons there, for the purpose of also taking a look at the issues that may have triggered some of the disturbances or the disagreements you saw have been issued. So it's expected there will be disagreements, but what is important is that effort is being made to resolve them.
Charles Saniago, thank you very much for your response and very interesting analogies that you have thrown up. I recognize the fact that you've coming from the perspective of a conflict theorist, as it's often said in sociology. And then you have also said that your party, the People's Democratic Party, has done the laundry of its clothes, so you want to leave those clothes to dry. before you iron and then before you put them on. Well, I don't know where you want to dry them. Do you have a dryer? Because we're in the rainy season. So, you know the way it is. I mean, they are here with us in Abuja. All over all through the weekend. It rained yesterday. And I think it was threatening again to rain this morning. So, it probably means that you may have to leave the clothes on the line for a while. Or if you have a dryer, then you put them in the dryer. But if they are very sensitive fabrics, then you can't possibly get them into the dryer. Just like we have with Dr. Baraka Sani here with us in the studios. I don't think that the very expensive material she's wearing is one that you can put in the dryer almost immediately. So, Dr. Baraka Sani, we're glad to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. But,
thank you, Karian.
Okay. I'm Kingsley.
Sorry, Kingsley. Yes, I saw Karian.
Don't make me jealous this morning.
It's been a while.
All right, Karian. All right.
Yeah, Kingsley.
So I would like us to back up a bit. Aside from getting into perhaps the details of what has been happening lately about the People's Democratic Party, let's back up and just take a look at the political landscape. Why is it that political parties have been characterized by endemic infighting? Infighting. If it is to have the structures that will govern the political parties from world level to the national level, you have quarrels. If it is for primaries, you have quarrels. And every time, particularly since the Fourth Republic, you start hearing about reconciliation committee. You have this routine every time. Are political parties unable to manage themselves?
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come in this morning to attend your wonderful program. Having said that, I think one of the major reasons that, have been putting us back to square one in terms of the wranglings has to do with our presidential system, if I may say. You know, with the parliamentary system, you can talk about party supremacy, where once the party says this is the direction, all members follow, and there is no room for wrangling like that. But in the presidential system, with the separation of powers, with the different arms, giving you your freedom and your right, you see that everybody has the right to go to court. That's why you find members taking the party to court in so many instances, or members doing otherwise. For instance, during the Zamfara elections, where the party members took the party to court, that up to the Supreme Court level. If there was party supremacy, we wouldn't have seen that. Also, for the past 20 years that we have been, 20-something years that we have been having democracy, this is what has been prevailing. It's because of the system of governance. Presidential system allows for freedom, allows for separation of power, allows for rule of law, and by extension, it gives you that leverage to decide for yourself, because it's your fundamental human right. That's why you see members acting in the opposite direction of their party. What transpired in the House of Reps when the party wanted Mulikat Adeola and Tambuwal was voted in. When the party wanted, Ete to remain, the members, joined the forces with APC members to do something else. So precisely it is the system of government we are running, which allows for freedom, which allows for rule of law, and with that you take your freedom to the highest.
And that undermines the supremacy of the party.
Supremacy of the party.
Say, yeah.
And then secondly, the stakes are high. In Nigeria, more or less, I don't know why it is so, but if you look at it, the stakes in politics are so high, and that's why the bigger political parties tend to have more of these wranglings. For the smaller political parties where it will be a miracle for them to form government, you see that the crises are less. Even you can see some of them put in their presidential candidates without even knowing when they conducted their election. But for the bigger parties, the probability is high that they could form government. And that is why scrambling is more there, the tension is higher there, and the stakes are higher there. In terms of, people look at it more in terms of return on investment instead of looking at it from the angle of service to the community. people don't really look at it in terms of what I want to go and do for my people. They look at it in terms of what I want to get out of the system. And that is why, for me, I have, been always propagating the aspect of the recall process to be put properly in shape so that people can come back. When you send a representative and he doesn't do what he's expected to do, the mechanism should allow you to recall him. But as it is today, the recall process is faulty. It is unattainable. So maybe if we have such systems in place, it will reduce the wranglings, because even when you fight and get there, if you are not fit for that position, you may easily be recalled. In addition to that, again, we have various interests, personal interests, group interests, the need to lead, to control. So with money, that's why the system again has become monetized. The higher the stakes, the higher the monetization of the system. So you find a landlord coming to say, I sponsored this, so I must get this. So they have taken away the freedom of people to make it their personal, fight to make sure they acquire as many positions and as much power to be able to control the bigger parties. In the smaller parties, you don't see these wranglings. So that's what takes me to believe that it is the stake. The higher the stake, the higher the wranglings. So.
Yes, but honestly, in smaller parties, we still have similar wranglings. Yesterday, we had the opportunity of hosting 2 guests from smaller parties. ADC, for instance, just suspended its presidential candidate. That's a small party, that's a party in the making. Yet the same issue is rearing its ugly head. You actually raised a number of points, which are very cogent. But again, if you say the system is the problem, does it mean that the system does not work in other climes? The point is, Mr. Aniago raised something earlier on, when he noted the fact that it is a societal thing, that the party exists within the ecosystem, and our behavioral pattern, our character, exactly, is a reflection of that. But we're also saying that if you have an organization like a political party, where you have elites, people who have understanding, people who should be guided by the rule of law that you mentioned, and they go out of their way, to go against the law, deliberately creating an anomaly that they know that in future it will be tied. They will say, okay, maybe in future we will set up a reconciliation committee. When you deliberately committed the offense, in PDP, for instance, many of your members, said that the constitution of the party has been flouted. Under most circumstances, and the PDP should not even present another candidate in the first instance. And many governors from the southern part of the country who are members of the PDP also said so, that look, you should go to the north for fairness, equity, and fair play. So, Mr. Charles Aniago, what can you make of this? Wasn't this wrangling in your party, for instance, one of the oldest parties in this country presently, that took power in 1999, lasted for 16 years, yet you cannot find a way to balance whatever ambition that you have in the party. So how can this be tackled? You have told us that there is an internal mechanism you are putting in place right now. But I can assure you that the other, individuals involved are not thinking in your direction. That is why people believe that it is deepening, into the party. So, what's the way out?
Well, let me first of all say that there is nothing wrong in individuals expecting the political parties and indeed our society to function much more better and much more effectively, or rather efficiently, than it is functioning at the moment. But even while you have that expectation, you must also give the benefit of the doubt that even God, who created a human being, would have created us one day and then given us the ability to begin to run and possibly begin to do everything. As a Christian, by my account of the Bible, Adam and Eve were not told that when they were created, they crawled or that they were walking before they started running. Probably that explains why they did not even obey God. They thought that they didn't know that you have to pass through certain processes, and as such they disobeyed God. And so perhaps that was why God now made it that when you give birth to a child, it must follow certain processes and begin to learn the rudiments of life. And so for political parties, as they are still a little new, If you consider what's even happening in parties like the Good Hope Party, the GOP, that is the Republican Party in America, that is over 200 years, you will understand that even they themselves, they still have some disagreement. You recall how Donald Trump and a good number of other members of the party were at loggerheads before he contested the last time. That tells you that in human society, you are bound to have these differences. Now, when you come to the issues you raise with respect to the PDP, you do realize that the PDP, being a very, very large party, has the responsibility to be able to galvanize the different views of these individuals who are in this party. And the question is, why do you even have this political party in the first place, and why do you form government? You are forming government to be able to cater to the needs of the people, having put together the resources that exist in the country. And even in a house, when you have just a small plate of soup with 3 pieces of meat, you see the elders, sometimes they are eyeing the bigger one, and the younger ones may just be eyeing them from one corner that is like, this elder, I want to cheat me. And if eventually the elder does not exhibit enough wisdom in distributing that meat in that piece of soup, you will certainly see some form of revolt from the junior ones who will want at least a fair share, even without determining whether that fair share is also going to be beneficial to the elder. That is why you see these differences that exist in a political party. Different persons are from different regions. For instance, I'm from Delta State. By the time we get to the sharing table, I may be looking at what a man in Lagos is taking. I hope he's not taking more than my people from Delta, since it's a common pool. And then the man in Anambra is also looking at me from Delta. I hope this Delta man is not going to cheat me. And depending on what he expects, either by way of entitlement or by way of what he sees as his fair share, which of course is subjective. So if he's not seeing it from my prism, and of course you expect that he's not likely going to see from my own prism, because first of all, I'm looking at what is going to go to my people. This factor of what will go to your people will necessarily trigger some form of expectations and possibly trigger some form of disagreement. And so when you have this disagreement, it now behoves on the elders to come and bring the people together to say, well, you may not have had your fair share this time around, but just take it easy. In the course of time, it will come to you. And at the end of the day, all these things are settled, and then they make progress. You made some allusion to the issue of the PDP having offended the spirit and intent of its constitution. That's not true. It is important that we look at the constitution of the PDP, because we have had this wrong narrative. The PDP says there will be rotation of power between the South and the North. It didn't say rotation of contests. Now, you recall in the 16 years of the PDP, between 1999 and 2015, the southern part of this country had the presidency for a period of 13.5 years, and in which case the North only had it for 2.5 years. And the last president on the platform of the party was from the southern part of the country. And so if you wake up and say that because there is a rotation and that Buhari, being the president from the North, is leaving, that is now turned from the people from the South, then you are making a mistake. Nigeria as a country did not come together to say we are going to do zoning. Otherwise, every political party at one time would have gone to one direction. Zoning is a political party principle and a decision. And so that political party will follow their decision as it suits them. If another political party, for instance, like ABGA, the candidate of ABGA, those who have always contested on the platform of ABGA at the presidential level, they have always come from the Southeast most of the time. Nobody kills them. Perhaps you may want to say because it's a smaller political party, but the fact is that because zoning is not a national, has not become a national discourse, it has been along the line of political parties. And so the PDP looked at its own party, particularly with respect to the members who are also very, very key members in the North. They have not also had a fair share with respect to the party. And so when the party looked at it, and then put it side by side with the expectation from persons from the South, having had a northern president, even if he's from another political party, decided that in order not to cause a bigger trouble, let them leave it open, which is why the neck of the meeting adopted the Osama Otob-led committee's report that the ticket should be left open. And when the contest happened, it happened that the man from the North, very credible candidate, won the election, and then you also had somebody coming second, another very credible candidate coming from the South. That shows you that there is a whole lot of interest both in the South and in the North. So the PDP did not in any way offend its constitution, because what they said is that power will move between the North and the South. And the last time I checked, the president of this country is not a member of the PDP. He is of the APC. So you don't use a member of the APC, in this case, our president, President Muhammadu Buhari, to judge what is happening in the PDP, because these are two different political parties. And if you look at what has happened in the PDP, you will know that it will not be injustice for the North to produce the candidate of the party haven't had the last president from the southern part of the country. So we need to take a look at that vis-a-vis what is provided in the constitution of the PDP. We are quite confident we are making progress, and by the grace of God, the election is for the PDP to lose in 2023. What that means, that this is a party that is positioned to win that election.
All right, Charles Aniago, thank you very much there for your explanation. I think that probably this is one of the most cogent explanations that have been provided, rather than the hot air that we've been hearing with regard to violation of the provisions of the PDP constitution, to say that what is internal to the PDP is not influenced by what is internal to another political party. They also drew attention to the fact that, the PDP ruled for 16 years. Perhaps if it had been 60 years, as the party had hoped, these arguments might not have arisen. Of those 16 years, the South, President Obasanjo did 8 years, and Goodluck Jonathan did 5 years. And then, unfortunately, Umar Musa Yar'Adua did 3 years before he passed on in May of 2010. But there are a number of points that we will also take up from what you have explained. And again, Kyrian, I think our viewers will permit us. Chinua Achebe was famous for this. I mean, he used our local idioms, our local parables to tell the African story. So earlier, when Aniago was talking about agitation arising from amongst political parties, that who gets what, he says, look, when you have 3 pieces of meat in a bowl and an elder is there, if the elder doesn't apply wisdom, the kids who are around that bowl, who are around that meal, will begin to nurse other ideas, and a revolt might occur. I'm sure, Charles, you must have heard this. Perhaps the children of these days do not know this, where there was communal eating, where people had to come up a bowl from where you ate, and there was meat. There was a saying, and that is no longer applicable, I imagine, but it used to be said then. Let me say it in Edo language. I will explain. When the piece of meat, when you take a piece of meat and is given to the elderly, the most elderly amongst them to share, you won't use a knife or a fork to share it. Your body will put it in the mouth and this to take it out. So the one that is inside the mouth, you don't know whether it is bigger than the one that he brings out and gives to you. That it is Almighty God that knows the one that is inside the mouth versus the one that he gave out, to see whether it was fair or otherwise. So, Charles, thank you very much for reminding us of some of those saying. But back again to Dr. Baraka Sani. Dr. Baraka Sani, look, against this backdrop of the explanations that you have provided, and I have an issue with one of the points you made. I'll come back to that, but I want to write on the details provided by Charles. Why are we still now having threats by, with names? Governor Nyesom Wike, he's not here with us, but it's been widely reported. He says that he will show you PDP Pepe. He came second in the election. He's a lawyer, by the way. I mean, went to law school in 1997. And he's been a minister. He's been the local government chairman. He's two-term governor, and he's been in the PDP all along. Now, fully cognizant of these explanations and the tendencies and so on and so forth, why the lingering threats of saying, in his words, he will show PDP Pepe in the 2023 elections? What is missing?
Well, honestly, I wouldn't know, because I cannot think for him. He knows what he has in his mind. And I used to think of Governor Wike as that very strong person, very focused person, and somebody, a party person. So maybe it is, maybe we're mistaken in context in terms of that's not what he actually means. But if that's what he does mean, I wouldn't know to what extent. But you see, that's why in every situation you pray to have somebody also by the side who will be pouring cold water. So as the fire is burning, if you want to quench it, you pour cold water. People have different ways of expressing their anger. Most likely that is one of them. But we have a matured presidential candidate who is looking at him as a brother, more or less as a son, more or less as a colleague, and more or less he sees him, as that person that's a party person that will not rock the boat. So I think at the end of the day, the wisdom of Atiku Abubakar will come to play, because he is a father. You can see that he has continued putting people together, bringing the party together, making sure that the center holds properly. And at the end of the day, I'm sure Governor Wike will, give in, because he's a party man. It's just that sometimes when you are angry, people have various degrees of expressing their anger, but I'm sure it will die down, because if there's anything he loves in this world in terms of politics, is the PDP. He's a party man, and I'm sure he will not want history to judge him on the wrong side. Right now, what Nigerians need is the PDP, because everybody is tired. We, the women, are tired. Students are tired of what is happening. Everybody, the industrialists are tired, the public servants are tired, civil servants, everybody. So anybody that comes in the way of PDP clinching the elections in 2023, I'm sure Nigerians will not be happy with that person. So, and I'm sure nobody will want to be judged on the wrong side of history. For us, we look forward to having the wisdom, of Atiku Abubakar come into play to settle everything. This is not his first time. That's why you look forward, to seasoned politicians, seasoned fathers who see beyond what is here today. Visionary leaders who look at tomorrow. And for tomorrow to be good, we all have to be united. Nigeria is one big country, very important country that, cannot fail and should not be allowed to fail. Unity is very important at this moment. And as a believer, we believe that power belongs to God. If God gives Atiku power, nobody can take it away. And if it is not his turn, nobody can give him. So having that belief, we call it Iman, there is nothing that derails us from keeping our eyes on the ball. So our eyes are still on the ball. As PDP members, many of us have our own problems too with the party, because women too, we have our own issues. So just like, a group is not happy, women too wish we had more, positions coming to us. But we all shelve our own, displeasure so that the party can gather itself and win the elections. When we win, there's so much that everybody can do. So I think really and truly, Governor Wike is a PDP man. He will come back. It's just a time.
Okay. Well, like my colleague said, Wike is not here to speak for himself, because if he's here, he would have already fired you. He will not. Because as he will say, he's one of those persons that never cross-carpeted. He's the party man, as rightly pointed out. But he is also saying that his other colleagues have been in and out of different parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So in terms of ideology...
Don't worry, when you are angry, there's nothing you will not say. I contested election under PDP in 2018. And more or less, I felt so bad because somebody, they just, imposed somebody and said, this one is this. But I had to, take it because I want the party to win. So like I told you, anybody that is a party man, you can only show me you are a party person.
Party man or party woman.
Or party woman. You can only make me believe you are a party man if you shelve your personal pain to allow for general recovery.
Because in all of this, Kingsley, nation building, should be uppermost in our mind.
That's it.
That's why when I was asking our colleague Aniago a question based on what happened, in the PDP, right? And of course, he gave us an analogy, that would be corrected.
It's very easy to say you are a party man, but your ability to make me believe you are a party man is when you are able to, the degree to which you are able to shelve your personal pain for general recovery. Okay. And honestly, this is no more, no less.
All right, we'll leave it at that for now. And we have just been joined by another guest whom we've been expecting, and that's via Zoom. Dr. Abdurrahim Adebayo Shitu. Dr. Adebayo Shitu the former Minister of Communications and the Director General at Suraju Tinubu Shetima Coalition for Good Governance. Good morning, Dr. Adebayo Shitu, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. I'm sorry I'm joining late because of technical issues, but I'm here to answer all your questions and make my own contributions.
Oh, okay, you just have to go ahead to do that because we are discussing party.
What is the question? What is the question?
Well, I'm coming to that.
I was just going to throw this in, Kiri. I know you're going to ask the question. Honorable Minister, as you used to be, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. Maybe you work out the aspect ratio of your set. Because we are seeing more of your white beard than the upper part of your head. If you got that joke.
Okay, Dr. Adebayo Shitu, our concern this morning is on the, unabated internal party wranglings in Nigerian political parties, and your party is also central here, because of course you're also experiencing internal wranglings in your party, especially after the primaries. So we also know that before the primaries, of course, the APC had its own share of internal crisis, which led to the fact that we didn't have chairman for a while and stuff like that, and the rest is history. But today, we have gone through primaries, and of course, we also know that all is not well with respect to unity in your party. Tell us why we keep experiencing this, not just in APC, but other parties in Nigeria for several years.
Well, number one, political parties are free associations of joiners and leavers. More often than not, you have people who get desperate, particularly they fail to get tickets. But these are human issues, and they are not very serious, at least in our party. You don't see the type of destructive campaigns against the fabric of PDP, particularly coming from the angle of Wiki. Happily, we don't have that within APC. We don't have it. There's nobody tearing APC apart. We had a very successful, free, fair, and acceptable, national convention. And after it, our principal, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was charitable enough to visit a number, most of the co-contestants that he had. And you don't hear anybody trying to tear apart the party, like the type of desperation which occurs within PDP. So as far as I'm concerned, everything within APC is very normal, very human, and there are nothing to worry about. I can assure you, APC is on this steady path to victory in 2023. You can take that to the bank. I can assure you that we are making steady progress in all fronts. In the north, where our candidate does not come from, we have a much more stable situation, for our party. And recall that the votes in the north are about 3/4 of the votes coming, into election, particularly presidential election. And I'm particularly excited that the kind of support that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is getting from the north in particular is akin to the type of massive, dispassionate support that the late Chief M.K. Abiola got from the north 30 years ago. So history is being relived. History is being repeated. And I am sure that willy-nilly our opponents, the PDP and the OB people, would be forced to celebrate with us after the 2023 election. So there's no way you can compare what's happening in APC with what's happening in PDP. Certainly, we are even expecting that the fallout of the internal wrangling, the fallout of the internal combustion within APC would be to the, I mean, within PDP would be to the advantage of APC. Anybody may be daydreaming that Wike will soon rejoin, PDP. But the signals that we can, every, reasonable person can see is that the center can no more hold within PDP. So,
Honorable Adebayo Shitu, thank you very much for the points that you have raised. Happily, we have guests from the PDP also on the program, so they will have the opportunity of responding to the claims and the points that you have also raised. But I would like you to address this. When you say that all is calm with the APC, many would dispute that. The Muslim ticket, for instance, has sparked quite some, if you may, outrage amongst stakeholders even within the APC. For instance, Engineer Babachi Lawal and Dogara, who's former Speaker of the House of Representatives. Babachi Lawal is from Adamawa State. He's a Christian. It's also former Secretary of the Government of the Federation. They've granted interviews where they expressed views almost as angry as what Wike himself has been saying about the PDP, indicating, even though they haven't used those exact words, as Wike said, they will show PDP pepper, that what has happened in terms of the Muslim ticket is unacceptable to them. That's one. Secondly, it doesn't appear to be a correct statement of the position that fellow contestants in the PDP presidential, in the APC presidential primaries have accepted the outcome and decided to stay quiet. There was a recent report where Ogbonaya Ono, who contested, Nwaji Uba, who was Minister of State for Education, contested, and Amechi also contested. And they said that they were not happy with the outcome. That's one other point. And thirdly, there are persons who have continued to quarrel over the heavy monetization of the primaries of your party, as indeed with some other political parties, and that therefore didn't create a level playing field. And yet you are saying, Honorable Shitu, that all is well.
My brother and fellow Nigerians, honestly, the first issue you raised about the supposed crisis emanating from the so-called Muslim ticket, honestly, it has become a past tense, and serious people are moving on. To start with, my principal, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was not chosen as presidential candidate because he's a Muslim. Certainly, that was a mere coincidence. He was simply chosen because he's Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has done so much for the state he had ruled, that is Lagos State. And people are saying the Midas touch that he used to transform Lagos from a near ghetto state to the 21st century state that Lagos has become, let him come and extend the same Midas touch to the whole of Nigeria so that we can have transformation, so that we can have good government, and so that Nigeria can, be transformed from what it is today. There's nobody who doubts his capability and ability and education and, dynamism, particularly in governmental, management. Those, with due respect, all those you mentioned, particularly Babachi Lawal, Dogara, and others, I think with due respect to them, there's a lot of hypocrisy in what is happening. These are Christians who, during the primary, rooted for Tinubu, not minding that there were Christian candidates, there were Christian aspirants. They did not, out of love, they didn't have the love to have a Christian presidential candidate. And I dare say that a majority of the aspirants in APC at that time were Christian. They never rooted for them. They supported what they now call the Muslim candidate in order to reposition themselves to become, to come onto the presidential ticket, banking on a failing, unmeritorious basis of religious division. I think that is hypocritical. I think that does not show that they truly love Christianity. If it was not about self-centeredness or selfishness, why didn't they support a Christian so that a Christian candidate would even become the presidential candidate of APC? They didn't do that. So for them to now start a supposed war, which will make them eventually irrelevant politically. I'm saying this with all seriousness. The issues about the other candidates you mentioned, Ogbonayano, who is a father to me, and Amechi, who is my junior brother, and the Emeka Wajuba, who is also my junior brother. I really don't know what their complaint is. They went through an election competition or contest with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If they are good fighters, they must also be good losers. Democracy is about losing gallantly. Democracy is not about desperation. You cannot expect that you must win by all means. And everybody saw the contest. It was an open contest. Majority of candidates withdrew voluntarily for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So what is Asiwaju's fault? Does he suddenly become servile to his co-contestants only because Nigerians or APC members preferred him to others? I think we should make progress. And I am happy to say that we are making progress. Anybody who does not join the winning train now is most like, with all due respect to them, going to be left behind, and they would eventually become irrelevant politically. And I'm happy that the people in the Southeast and South-South are moving on. After the election and after the emergence of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, people are certainly moving on. And I can assure you that the movement of Tinubu to the villa is unstoppable. It is an unstoppable train.
Honorable Adebayo Shitu, thank you so much. I mean, we've gotten your message, but some of the things that you said, although we don't have those persons here to defend themselves or, or make further explanations of what they meant. Because when you talk about Dogara, Babashir, and co, these are key players, in the northern politics, although they are Christians. So you are saying, why didn't they vote for a Christian during the primaries? But you rightly also said that Ahmed Tinubu didn't emerge because he was a Muslim. So they voted for him because perhaps they believe that he has the capacity. But then they are now saying, what about the person that worked with him as a vice president? That, but let me finish up. Let me finish up. They're also saying that there are Christians from the north and qualified to be vice president of Ahmed Tinubu. They are not against electing him in the first place. But all the same, as we make progress, we will be able to return to you for further clarifications. As in terms of Ogbonayano and co, they are saying, where is justice and so on. No, what we're trying to establish here is that there is wrangling in your party as other parties. We're only trying to say, how can we put a stop to that as a nation? We'll take a short break now. When we return, the conversation will continue.
All right, welcome back. Still good morning, Nigeria. We're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. All our three guests are still with us for today's conversation. Dr. Barak Asani here in the Abuja studios, Charles Aniago via Zoom with us from Asaba, and Honorable Adebayo Shitu, former Minister of Communications and now Director General of the Asiwaju Tinubu Shettima Coalition for Good Governance. Charles Aniago, let's return to you very briefly. Well, happily, APC and PDP are now on set, but our general conversation has had to do with how to ameliorate the bickerings amongst political party members and leaders so that they can focus on the key issues of running the parties effectively, so that if they can't manage themselves, questions will arise as to how they're able to then manage the polity much more effectively. Yesterday, when we had the first part of this conversation, I threw in, by way of analogy, the theory of relativity by Albert Einstein, where E equals to mc raised to power 2. And I said that part of the challenge that we face with the Fourth Republic in particular is the notion that success without a successor equals to failure. And this, therefore, for instance, at the subnational level, will drive a governor who probably rode into office on the basis of the strength of his predecessor to start building his own structures, and those structures would include taking charge of the governance of the political party within the state. He would ensure that local councils are won and that local councillors and chairmen are loyal to him. House of Assembly members are also loyal to him, and handpick everybody. And persons are saying that this is the bane of internal party democracy in our country. And this is the endless wrangling that we continue to hear, why people defect, why people cause a great deal of trouble, you know, by shaking the table and so on and so forth. Is there a way, you've been in the system now for a while, at least working with politicians. Is there a way we can begin to take some steps back from this kind of almost zero-sum game that we have at the subnational level and also in some cases at the national level?
Well, thank you very much. But before I answer your question, I am happy that my other brother, the former minister, joined. But of course, you can also know the difference between PDP and his own party. You told all of us to be here by 7:30 for this program. You saw that he came late. That tells you the difference between PDP and the other party. We are prepared to govern and make a difference and not to come late to programs. Secondly, we acknowledge that we had challenges in the party and we are dealing with it. He did not acknowledge that they have a problem until you pushed him, and the only thing he ended doing is to recognize that there are selfish persons in his party who are being hypocritical. In our own party, we don't have hypocrites. We only have persons who are raising issues and we are addressing those issues. Yes, Onwike is a very great leader in our party. He has raised a number of issues and our party is taking steps to address them. Now to your question, it's about leadership recruitment. And it takes time to be able to deal with those issues. Leadership recruitment speaks to the issue of service. Today, we have not been able to fully graduate as a country to where service becomes the main thing. And that is why we have seen a number of youths agitating for a change, or more or less a paradigm shift from the way things are being done. And I'm happy to report that Atiku Abubakar are taking cognizance of the issues being raised by our youths, the need for our government to work much more better for us, the need for our society to function much more effectively, the need for us to recognize that the government is for the sole purpose of providing security and the welfare of the people, as provided for in Section 14, subsection 2, paragraph B of the 1999 Constitution. Until you are able to do that, you begin to see individuals who are only just following the leader because of their pocket, and what our leader in PDP popularized when he said stomach infrastructure. Until we begin to reduce the effect of stomach infrastructure and emphasize more on the need to distribute resources effectively and equitably, and at the end of the day address the many challenges confronting the society. That way, the individuals will now begin to realize that you don't just need to follow the leader because you want him to feed you or to address the needs of your pocket, but rather the needs to add a value to the society. So I am hopeful that in the course of time, all those things will fall in place. Whether we like it or not, as a country, there are areas where we have made progress. As we speak today, our democracy is about 23 years old. What does that tell you? You recall that before now, the military would just jump in at every slightest mistake by the politicians. What has happened in the last 7 years is nowhere compared to the kind of thing that happened in the past where the military came in. But in spite of this, they have realized that they should allow the Nigerian people to choose their leaders. That is some form of a development in our country, that those in authority, those in the military know that yes, they have their own rule, while the political class are free to play their politics. So we must recognize that we're making some progress. And what you're also seeing in some political parties, particularly the PDP, where even aggrieved members are given the latitude to ventilate their grievances and still remain in the party, it's also a sign of democratic movement. Unlike before, when somebody gets aggrieved, like what you have seen happening, particularly the APC, you report that some of their members have now moved into the PDP because they know that that is the party to belong. I can assure you, anybody in any other political party thinking that some of these are leaders that have become very attractive, you saw that they were very busy trying to woo Nyesom Wike because they know that he has performed under the platform of the PDP. And each time you see them coming to PDP to look for performance, why are they doing so? Because they recognize that PDP produces performance, and as a party, we are ready to rescue Nigeria from where they have placed us in the last 7 years.
Well spoken, thank you. But some of the points you raised are actually debatable in terms of what PDP has been able to achieve. We had PDP for 16 years, and of course, by 2015, everybody in this country was talking about removing the PDP. Now PDP is returning again with a new agenda. I hope Nigerians will appreciate one more time to be able to give you power.
But they all agree that it was a mistake.
Well, madam, 16 years is not 16 days, right? So, I mean, that would have been enough time for a party to establish its capacity in governing this nation.
You can see what we did versus what is happening.
Let's not go to that. Because what is happening today happened during the PDP 16 years era.
Now?
Let's not go to that.
Okay.
But the important thing this morning, is to ensure that you people organize yourselves properly, run the party properly, follow the due process, rule of law, and all of that. If you have agreements, abide by the agreement. These are things that bring all these wranglings. So we know ourselves. We are Nigerians. Yeah, right. I'm a journalist, but I also know politicians. I've met many of you. I've met you some couple of years ago. Now I'm meeting you again today. That shows that we are interested in what you are doing. Now, what is the role of the women when it comes to all of this? We are women leaders. And we know that when it comes to voting, women have that power, more than the men, if you ask me. Now, what is your role in terms of ameliorating the deplorable condition that we find in political parties in Nigeria? What should be the role of the women? And is your role even going to be effective or efficient to change the course of history of political parties in Nigeria?
Well, you need a visionary leader to be able to see ahead beyond what is happening now, to see the role women can play, to believe in their ability, and then to allow them be. And that is one of the reasons that I always tell women that I meet that one of the visionary leaders today we can trust is Atiku Abubakar, because he believes in our ability. He is one man that if you can do it, he will let you be. He will allow you to do. He will not look at your gender. For instance, he gave me one of the most sensitive positions. I was the director of delegates, management and mobilization for his campaign, both in 2018 and in 2022. It is a position ordinarily they will not give to a woman because they believe we cannot deliver. And that the whole contest rested on that office, because that is the office, the most sensitive office that can make or mar your primary elections. And because of that, he's one person that I can pinpoint to say he made a lot of women, ascend the ladder of decision making, irrespective of their religion or tribe. Look at Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. It was Atiku Abubakar that propelled her, and we all know her to be the good woman that she is today. So any leader that can give us space to see what we can do. We went to school, we read, but we don't have the opportunity as men are given. Whatever position they are going to give us, some of them will just look at you and condemn you. She's a woman. Don't give a woman, it's too much. Give a man. This is a position that a man should occupy. When in countries we are having women presidents, women prime ministers, here in Nigeria we are still talking about some positions that women cannot, occupy. But Atiku Abubakar is one man that can even make a woman the chief of staff. If he becomes when he becomes the president of Nigeria. That is what I know Nigerians will do. But to take care of party wrangling, I think he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. One of the reasons why we always have this kind of I am the leader, even when you are not the national chairman, is because we remove, we take away ourselves from our duty and we allow other people do it for us. As party members, we're supposed to be paying our party dues. But how many people pay party dues? So there's a saying that he who pays the piper dictates the tune. We allow some people to come in and take away that from us. And obviously, if you pay, if you give in your money, you would want to decide or determine what happens to that thing that you are feeding your money. So as a caution, we must endeavor to pay our party dues. That is very important. Secondly, whenever there is a convention, because of this spirit of federal character and whatever, they will not allow for fair elections to take place. they will anoint this one. You are the secretary. You look like the chairman. You are the chairman. You look like the legal. You are the legal advisor. Your face looks like the finance. Okay, you are the finance. Obviously, if you do not work towards getting to that position, you will not know the value. And when trouble comes, it is your organ that will decide. And they lay claims to the party. They believe they own the party because they fund it. But honestly speaking, my people say my people say that if you have ojukokoro ice, that is when you know that that stew is smelling nice in that house. We say we are designing into a political party. For goodness sake, let us pay our dues. Secondly, like I told you, party supremacy is weakened by the presidential system of government because of the aspect of the rule of law, freedom, the equality before the law. So anybody can take the party up to the Supreme Court, and they can defy the party and nothing happens. We need to restore party discipline. Everything they say in the Constitution, the Constitution is on one side and what is happening is on the other. Why? Because we don't want to follow the simple rules, and in trying to be fair, to say we have equity, justice and fairness, we break the law, and obviously it will come back to haunt us. But I tell you, in advanced countries, you don't even want to know where your president comes from. You don't care if he's a Muslim or a Christian or he's Italian. But what you want is the visionary leadership that your country deserves. And that is what we need in Nigeria now. We need a visionary leader that will be able to give us back the strength of our money, give us back our dignity, give women a fair role, put us in the position that will be happy with our country. In the National Assembly now, we have poor representation of women, and even gender mainstreaming. The PWDs, the youths, and the women, they are all in distress. I want a president that will listen. When we go for campaigns, the youth should come forward with what they think they need. For instance, recently Atiku Abubakar visited Kano. I told the youths, you cannot come and clap and tell him you are president. You must tell us what is the problem, and then we see how we can solve it. Then that's when you know you have presented something to your president. They came with a letter. In the letter, they said they want an electoral reform for the recall process, so that when we send members who are not representing us properly, we can call them back. They want a functional curriculum, so that the university system will not turn out graduates that will come out and be waiting on the government to give them jobs. But then we want a president that will make us get to the zenith of our career.
Dr. Baraka.
Honestly, in Nigeria, we don't want this wrangling. What we want is we should always be looking out at for this interest, so that it serves the group.
When the campaign,
when you are looking at the president, I say because he made one state to look like something good, he can make Nigeria. Can you compare Atiku and Tinubu?
No, when competition.
Tinubu helped Lagos, Atiku helped Nigeria. All the economic programs, Atiku ran them.
Madam, when it's time for campaign, we'll bring you back.
One of my friends something. Look,
we'll bring you back.
Trusted and trusted is Atiku. We have problem in education.
Madam, we're going to bring you.
We have problem in manufacturing.
We are going to bring you back for this.
We have problem in peace.
Madam,
conflict, insecurity.
We are going to bring you back for this. Okay. For all of
Nigerians should decide, madam, what is good. What is good is Atiku.
Exactly. And when campaign starts, we begin to do that. Because we also know that Atiku was VP for 8 years.
And he did a lot.
Let's go. Okay, fine, I agreed.
Going by technology, it was Atiku that wiped away the loans that we couldn't pay. Over him with Apple or Nongo I can name
that's what I'm saying. When we campaign starts, we'll bring you back for this. For all of this.
Dr. Baraka, yes. Thanks a lot for the points you have raised. One of the female presidents in the Nordic countries had an issue recently. She's one of the female presidents. He said she's been organizing too many parties and dancing when the country is in serious crisis. But that's just to divert attention from the heat. But let's go back to Honorable Adebayo Shitu. Honorable Adebayo Shitu, very briefly, we wish to respond to the issues that they have raised. Again, we're not campaigning, but on a more pointed note, how can we attenuate the infighting in the political parties? Because sometimes these things are just distractive. I know Dr. Bawa Kasani was saying it's a function of our presidential system. Look, some of us were already of age. We could vote, and I did vote during the Second Republic in 1979 and 1983. And when we had the Second Republic, we didn't have this intensity of squabbling as we are having now amongst politicians and the high monetary value being placed on offices. How can we reduce this and then focus on the real issues of good governance?
Well, thank you for the monologue session we have had from my sister. It's interesting that she took advantage of your liberalism, with due respect to you, to spawn, a monologue. Now, let me start by commenting on the statements of the last but one speaker. I don't know his name. I'm sorry. I think, with due respect to you, he was petty by going back to the fact that I came on board lately. I had apologized that for technical reasons I couldn't, fix myself into this program. So I think it is unnecessary for him to have, done that in order to gain, some mileage, perhaps, is in his thinking. That's number one. I am happy that Nigerians are very intelligent, Nigerians are dynamic, and Nigerians will not go back to the past rot imposed on this country by the PDP. The PDP was in government for 16 years. If they had done well, as people are thinking, Nigerians would have forgotten all the rot that they wrought on this country. The PDP era was the time when budgets would be made to fight Boko Haram, to buy arms and ammunition, and not a single kobo of that amount will be expended on its intended purpose. Instead of buying arms and ammunition, they simply put the money on the table and shite. Both the political class of that era, of the PDP era, and their military accomplices. Nigerians will not forget this. The PDP era was a time when $16 billion will be.
Well, it looks like former Minister of Communications, there is a freeze on your Zoom connection. We are pressed for time, but if you are back on, we'll just give you the opportunity to wrap up because we are pressed for time. We have to end 60-90 seconds. Well, it looks like there's still a freeze on the Zoom connection. Again, as we indicated, there will be an opportunity to return to some of these issues once we get a full-blown campaign. But our principal concern has been how to, as we said, attenuate infighting in the various political parties. On that note, we would like to thank our three guests this morning who've been with us. First, Charles Aniago, who is one of the spokespersons of the PDP presidential candidate and also of the Executive Council in Delta State. He joined us via Zoom from Asaba. We also would like to appreciate Honorable Adebayo Shitu, former Minister of Communications, and DG, Tinubu Shetima Coalition for Good Governance. Here in the Abuja studios, Dr. Bawa Kasani. She's a PDP stalwart and has been at some point Commissioner for Agriculture in Kano State, as well as Senior Special Assistant to President Goodluck Jonathan, also on agriculture. All right, so that's it for us this morning. We are unable to, of course, get into our sports segment. Yesterday, Bayern Munich showed again why they are lords against Barcelona. 2-0, second half goals. Pretty good for them in the group stages so far. I'm Kingsley Osadele. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Hello, I'm Kiri Emima. Have a good day and see you again tomorrow.